Hello everyone, my name's Damien High and I'm a professor at QAFE and welcome to today's QAFE Science Seminar Series. And today we're going to be talking to and about FaBA, which is a Food and Beverage Accelerator, a Trailblazer program which is pretty exciting, and I think there's a lot of people very keen on quite a bit of detail around FaBA, so we'll be actually bringing that in today. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the country in terms of I'm just waiting for that one to change. Sorry, we're just getting our slides right. Oh, okay. Let's just swap over slides and then we'll just start again in terms of the acknowledgement of country. I can start that. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and their custodianship of the lands on which we meet today. In our case, it's the Agra and Turrbal people. On behalf of the traditional owners, I pay respect to their ancestors and their descendants who continued their cultural and spiritual connections to country. We recognise their valuable contributions to Australian and global society. Okay, before we really get started, I'll just keep moving on and we'll hopefully have the slides up in a moment.
Sorry, just a minute, I'm doing that right now.
That's right, Nettie. I'll just keep blabbing for a few minutes and then we'll be okay to make a start. The fairly typical way that we run the science seminars is it's for an hour, and in this case it'll be presentations from a number of our people in FaBA for the first 45 minutes, and then allowing 15 minutes for, well, about 10 minutes say for question and answers session. You've got a Q&A button down the bottom of your screen, so we encourage people to use their Q&A and put the questions in there. Don't use the chat, mostly because we can't kind of capture the chat questions, but we can capture the Q&A questions. So just make sure you're using that Q&A, and we very strongly encourage that. When we get the Q&A questions, we'll cover as many as we can in the time. Others we can certainly keep responding to beyond that time period. Okay, so it's my pleasure to introduce Chris Downs, and Chris is the director of FaBA, which is Australia's Food and Beverage Accelerator. A little quick background on Chris, and quite a few people would know Chris. Over time, he's been involved a lot with QAFE. So he's currently the president and chair of the Institute of Food Technologists, USA, which has more than 12,000 industry, government, and researcher members from around the world. Prior to joining FaBA, Chris was General Manager of Crop and Food Science at QDAF, so a lot of people know him from there. He's going to be bringing in also the leads across the 4 different programs of FaBA, so you'll get to see and meet them today as well. I'm not going to spend too long on FaBA because I think Chris was going to do an excellent job of actually covering that. But basically, it's a Trailblazer program, $160 million initiative, $50 million from the federal government, and then a lot of investment, $110 million from industry partners, universities, and has a 4-year life to deliver quite a lot. So I'm very happy to hand over to Chris, take over from here. Thanks, Chris.
Right. Damien, thank you. Really appreciate the introduction, and thank you to everybody that's listening in today. It's a great opportunity for us to be able to profile Australia's Food and Beverage Accelerator to you all. Next slide, please. Can I also, on behalf of FaBA, acknowledge the traditional owners and their custodians of the lands on which we're meeting today, and together we pay our respects to their ancestors and to their descendants. Next slide. If we just wanted to skip through what we'll cover with you today, I wanted to just begin with a brief couple of slides that outlines what Australia's Food and Beverage Accelerator, or FaBA, is and what we'll be doing. As Damien's mentioned, we're going to have 4 of our program leads giving an introduction to the science, the work that they'll do for industry in each of their programs. So Innovation Pathways, Janet Nicole Kennedy in Innovative Ingredients, Esteban Marcelin, Premium Food and Beverage Products, Jason Stokes, and also our FaBA Training Centre, Nidhi Bansal. Closing off, we'll have Lloyd Thompson, who heads up commercialization and business development for FaBA, just providing a few words about how people can get involved. And as Damien has said, we look forward to having a Q&A session with you. Please do use the Q&A tab, not the chat for that. Next slide, please. We like to say in FaBA that industry's success is FaBA's success. So our KPIs are very closely aligned with benefit to industry and what industry wants to get out of engagement with FaBA. Damien's talked about the total investment that we have from the Department of Education, from universities, from industry partners, and we really do welcome the opportunity to work over the next 4 or 5 years with industry to invest in the development of new skills. An example of that is PhDs, but we also have postdocs and other engagement in training. We want to work with at least 20 new startups. We want to see at least 10 new ingredients into the market and at least 20 new food and beverage products into the market as well. Skills development, growth of the sector is what we see as success, and I'm sure industry would count as success as well. Next slide, please. So we welcome the opportunity to work. We're hosted by the University of Queensland. We welcome our university participants in QUT and the University of Southern Queensland. We may be hosted and located in Queensland, but really it's important to note that FaBA has a reach and already has industry participants, and I'll go to the next slide, joining up with FaBA. Next slide, thanks, Nidhi, who are from across Australia. Some are local, some are certainly in other states, and we already have additional participants in addition to those that are here that are signing up or in the process of signing up as well. And as I said earlier, there will be an opportunity for a second round of investments, and Lloyd will talk a little bit about that later on. Next slide, thanks. We are governed, as I say, we are industry-led and we are performance-based. So we make investments on behalf of and for industry success. We're governed by an industry steering committee with experienced industry professional. It's chaired by Peter Riddles, and you can see the names of the others in our industry steering committee listed there. Our investments are also governed by an experienced industry investment committee, and Anne-Marie Burkle from our board chairs that project investment committee. We have a UniQuest rep, myself, and we are having at least 4 independent, if not 5 on some occasions, members for that project investment committee. And it's my pleasure to, as I say, be the director, the lead of FaBA, working closely with Sue O'Brien as the associate director and with a really talented team of professionals as part of the directorate as well. Next slide. So now to our programs, and that's really what we want to focus on in our presentation today. We want to encourage participants to conduct work across one or more of FaBA's programs, whether it be in innovation pathways, innovative ingredients, premium foods and beverages, and the FaBA Training Centre. We're going to go to each of these 4 people in turn to hear some more detail from them about what each of their programs are involved in. So let me hand over first to the Innovation Pathways program and Professor Janet Nicole Kennedy. Janet, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. It is a privilege to be leading the Innovation Pathways program within FaBA and working very closely with Chris, but also with the other program leads and the new hires that we have already got started in this program. Next. Thank you. So in terms of innovation pathways, as Chris mentioned, it's about investing in the key elements in order to grow the commercialisation of industry-led research. So we have three components that fit together. They're very integrated: the insights engine, the impact foundry, and the design accelerator. Next. So this slide tries to show how each of the three components, insights engine, impact foundry, and design accelerator, are very much integrated. And you can see there with the arrows, we are trying to demonstrate that what we learn in one of those areas will lead to further refinement, further learnings in the other areas. In terms of the insights engine, we might go to the next slide. Yeah, thank you. So in terms of the insights engine, we believe it's critical that we get evidence for our ideas of what might be a new product, what might be new packaging, new positioning, and so on, from evidence. That's evidence from the marketplace. We're looking at both qualitative and quantitative data analysis. We're looking at what the trends are. So in terms of greater interest in sustainable food and beverage products, interest in being more nutritious, interest from the market in terms of being more healthy and having greater vitality, perhaps, in the products. So I really want to emphasize the importance here of gathering data from the market. We're looking at both the end user and supply chain members through this analysis. So it's evidence-based and identifying where the value could be enhanced to enable new capabilities, new products, new niches in that market, new branding, new positioning of a product. Perhaps it's a bit tired and it needs to be repositioned in the marketplace. And we are building data repositories and dashboards. So these are available to the individual industry participants, but also some of this will be available more broadly to the food and beverage sector. Thank you. Next one. So the next component, the impact foundry, is really focusing, working with the industry participant and integrating tools, models, frameworks that are appropriate to that particular participant in terms of where they're at in their level of maturity, and also whether they're a large organisation or a small, medium enterprise. So we take an interdisciplinary approach here, using the skills and expertise, the experience of people here at the University of Queensland, but also, as you saw, with QUT and University of Southern Queensland, working with scientists and technicians within those individual organisations that are partnering with us, and to really develop product and service development work in key areas that build that first stage of developmental pathway to market. And finally, in the design accelerator, we're able then to identify what might be the best model, the best business model to enable success in the marketplace. Given that we have undertaken all of this previous work, understanding the data and undertaking significant analysis of that data, so that we're able then to present this back to the participant and work with them to develop up the most effective business model. So it's very much a collaboration. We're working with being the operative word there, with our different people within the university, in the organisation, and so on. So it might be a spin in, a spin out, what is appropriate to for that organisation, and also look at startups potentially within the industry that's appropriate for that organisation. Thank you. I pass on to Esteban, who leads the innovative ingredients. Thanks, Esteban.
Thank you very much, Janet. As Janet mentioned, it is also my immense privilege to be leading the Innovative Ingredients program at FaBA. So if we can go to next slide. So Innovative Ingredients, it's really trying to enable startup companies to be successful and get new ingredients into market. We have a big component of precision fermentation, and I will elaborate a little bit more about this, but it is really trying to develop these ingredients and help these startups to scale up so they can have economically viable strains. If we go to the next slide. So synthetic biology, whether we like it or not, is about to disrupt your industry. This is true for pretty much every industry. We can look at this report from in February 2022 from Boston Consulting, where it estimates that about 60% of the world's physical inputs could be made biologically. It also shows or indicates that about 45% of world disease could be addressed. And as an indicator of this, about 30% of the private sector R&D is spent in biology nowadays. It's estimated that in the next 7 years, synthetic biology will have a share of around $20 to $30 trillion, which just show the significance of it. So if we can go to the next slide. So what we're trying to do within our program is try to help accelerate industrial implementation. So to do that, we need to achieve enough yield, enough titer and productivity from our industrial strains. And that normally takes about 10 years, but obviously within FaBA, we only have 4 years. So if NIDI can click, what we're really trying to do is reduce the time it takes for implementation. And if you can click again, NIDI is really using automation. And I will explain a little bit more how we'll do that. So we'll use synthetic biology and we'll generate new strains that will generate questions and hypotheses. Through this progress, we will create new knowledge that will inform our experimental design, and we'll use computational biology or digital twins to try to find and better understand the bottlenecks in production so we can really accelerate the design of strains. If we can go to the next slide, Nidhi, please. So innovative ingredients is really about collaborating with industry. As Chris mentioned, it is industry-driven research, and we'll use small-scale instrumented bioreactors for high throughput cultivation of our engineered strains that will be made either here or with our industrial partners or through collaboration with other bio foundries. We'll implement automated workflows for high throughput analysis, and we will use the already established state-of-the-art analytical facilities for industrial biotechnology available at UQ and throughout our industrial partners' sites. We'll use machine learning and artificial intelligence to try to maximize what we can learn from biology and inform the decisions for the next generation of strains so we can really accelerate industrial implementations and achieve the right titers and productivity needed. If we can go to the next slide. So really what we're trying to do is we will work with our partners to do the genetic engineering, the DNA construct, and the strain development. We have in our program a big investment in bioreactors, small-scale lab bioreactors for in vitro and in vivo studies, so we can develop efficient bioreactors and bioprocesses. We will use metabolomics, proteomics, and systems biology to try to identify bottlenecks, and we'll use our digital twins to help us understand biology better. Next slide. So within our program, we already have 3 participants. We have Nourish Ingredients, OG Foods, and Eat and Brew. And I'll try to talk a little bit about what we'll do. So this is the next slide. So normally, from a calf to a mature lactating cow, it takes about 2 years to get there. But using synthetic biology, we can accelerate this. So we will engineer strains using engineered microorganisms, and we can then use precision fermentation to accelerate the design and make new ingredients. For example, Nourish is trying to make fats, Eat and Brew and OG are trying to make proteins. So we can use these new ingredients to formulate our everyday food. And if Nidhi can show, click again. Really, the idea is that the proteins and the fats are molecularly identical, and they can be used in many products that we love. So we can start manufacturing cheese, we can make chocolate, yogurt, or using the fats that are produced at Nourish, we can make burgers or chicken. We will do this in partnership with QUT, where the Mackay plant is being built, and we can really take these strains into larger scale. If you can go to the next slide. And we know that the health of our planet is at risk. And here I'm showing the planetary boundaries of the Stockholm Resilience Center. And this is a measure that we can use to determine the health of the systems on Earth. It considers 9 entities, and the global climate change biosphere integrity are the core indicators of planetary health. We do know that this precision fermentation uses less land and less water, and we can see that land system change and obviously fresh water use are important to keep our planet healthy. So that's really what we're trying to do, contribute to help get sustainable agriculture. And thank you, Nidhi. With that, I will pass on to Professor Jason Stokes that will talk about premium food and beverage.
Thanks, Esteban. So it's great to be here, and I'm really thrilled to be the program lead for the premium food and beverage program at FaBA. So I've been at UQ for the last 15 years, and before that, I spent 10 years working for Unilever in the UK in sort of R&D. So I've actually worked with industry and within industry and with industry for sort of over the last 25 years. So what I love about FaBA is actually bringing the opportunity to actually work with Australian industry and help Australian industry succeed, and sort of blends sort of the research that we've been doing both at UQ and in my previous life in industry together to really sort of deliver some and accelerate endeavours that can help future business. Can you go to the next slide? So a key goal really from FaBA of the Premium Food and Beverage program is really to add value to Australian industry. So adding value onshore. And it's really covering both plant and animal-based foods and beverages. It can cover Indigenous foods, but also we really want to build collaborations. So networks and building partnerships with industry is absolutely key. And that's not just sort of big companies, but it's also trying to work with smaller businesses and really helping them succeed and give them the know-how and ability to actually be successful and accelerate their ideas and make those ideas happen for the future. Can you go to the next slide? And just go through the points. So some of our goals, indeed, to sort of create capability and capacity for food research and innovation, particularly to address the science and engineering challenges of creating sustainable, consumer acceptable foods and ingredients. That's really a core goal. And we need to be able to deliver R&D projects with industry that add real value to them and create ongoing collaborative opportunities as well. And also we have to conduct science and engineering research that actually delivers future innovations that benefits consumers and industry. And that's really thinking about generating IP, but also generating know-how and to turn what we're doing in research and science into actually translating it into benefits. And I'll just show a picture of an example of that, which is one of my colleagues, Dr. Heather Schuon, and Josh Hemler, who's with Chalita, one of our partners. And really, I think her recent Advanced Queensland project really exemplifies what we hope to achieve in FaBA. With her, she was doing some more food-related work, looking at gelatin and looking at food opportunities. But because of COVID, she had to pivot that project quite quickly and reduce it from a 3-year program to 1.5-year program to really address sort of needs of COVID-19 due to the scheme changes. And we're a bit daunted by that because instead of 3 years, you've got 18 months, but actually being able to transition that science, creating new partners was needed. So she worked with AusClean as well as Chalita. She spent time working in their research areas in the actual industry to actually accelerate the sort of research ideas that she had to actually make that into a product. And, you know, and basically she ended up creating a product that is able to spray a surface cleaner on that sort of creates an antiviral coating that sort of is actually resists drying and resists rubbing. And so it can protect services over 24 hours. But that idea about pivoting, about delivering actual and outcome in a very short time is essentially what we have to be able to do. And we have to be able to use science and engineering to do that. The other key feature was using multidisciplinary teams. She had to draw upon people in microbiology, food sciences, so across the uni to be able to deliver it. Can you go next slide? And when we, in terms of the program, what we sort of recognise is there's many factors influencing food and beverage manufacturing in Australia and indeed the world. So one of the major factors, and Esteban's mentioned it, is sustainability. So we must produce foods and beverages with minimal impact on the environment. But also we're aging longer. We require foods that are healthy and nutritious, while still enjoyable to eat. It must be safe and trusted, and processes and supply chains must be also highly efficient. So these are really, these goals are often pushing products into design spaces where there is limited knowledge, even utilising some of the ingredients that Esteban talked about. And even if we start to take ingredients from my research, from our research, is even when we start taking ingredients like fat, sugar, and salt out of products, they often no longer give the same pleasant sensory experience. And if we try to replace an animal protein with a plant protein, we often discover that they have completely different contributions to the structure of food or beverage that requires a lot of other additives to compensate. So we discover there's more than just ingredients on a label that matter, but there's also the techno-functional properties of those ingredients and the processing used that are critical to taste, flavour and texture that underpins the consumer experience. Can you click through, Nettie, to, yeah. And so we also discovered that we need to use different processing strategies to alter product microstructures and to minimise waste and improve sustainability. And one of the processes we're excited about is extrusion. We've just obtained both a lab scale and a large pilot scale device. The pilot scale device is actually located at DAF's facilities in Cooper's Plains. And such facilities are actually in demand globally. In fact, some of our partners actually have to have gone overseas to utilise such techniques before. But it's not easy to get food design right, and general advancement requires knowledge and technology from a huge range of science disciplines and engineering. And that's what we want to be able to achieve, is draw upon what the university has, across departments to really help industry address their needs in this space and deliver positive outcomes. And which ultimately is linked to delivering food sustainably, that is nutritious and enjoyable to eat, and in a rational way. Can you move on to the next slide? So some of the challenges, priorities and sort of deliverables that we I feel we face in the program is, and probably opportunities, I should say, is really the need to assemble multidisciplinary teams. I think this is challenging, but also exciting to do, and we've done it in the past. And we need them to operate coherently and deliver against the industry targets. And I think that's really exciting. We need to be able to develop recruit and develop future research leaders and scientists and engineers who can really operate effectively at the junction between research and industry. And certainly seeing that happen more and more in the academic environment. Industry links are becoming critical, and you're seeing that with PhDs and fellowships, even with the ARC. And we want to be able to design and execute our R&D projects with realistic and achievable goals in collaboration with industry and with a real translation focus, really translating new science into new business. And we have to ensure that we are effective in acquiring and utilising and sharing resources and achieve these aims. So we don't really want people operating in silos. We really want to see collaboration across departments, and indeed at universities as well. We're really keen on working with our partners in UniSQ in particular for our program, but also hopefully QET. Can go next to, yeah. And how will that look in the way we're setting up the program is really looking at a series of programs looking at strategic research and capability development, knowledge and IP. So we'll have a small amount of people sort of working towards that endeavour. And that'll underpin, if you click through, industry-led collaborative research, which will have a number of different programs, lots of different researchers working to collaboratively to deliver different ones for different partners. And it could range across the areas that I highlight there. If you go next slide. And we wanted to mention we have some really stretching KPIs. So we really want to have success, and we have a short time to do it. And we, and essentially, and we do have the experience to do it as well. But essentially, we want to be able to facilitate the launch of new food and beverage products. We want to be able to transition from technology readiness levels, but really going from lab scale to pilot scale. And I just show pictures of the two extruders that we have in our facilities, and it's exciting to see that as a key player in that endeavour. And we want to be able to create new value through new markets. So it's often being able to rationally design products to capture new market opportunities. And that's really also working with Janet's team to think about how we can, what new markets are needed, where are they, and how to facilitate that. And I guess in terms of how we approach it, which is kind of, we want to take a different approach to standard R&D that's often within industry. And really my belief is we believe in sort of delivering a more of a rational design approach for products and processes, which contrasts with the product development approach that is often trial and error fashion. So what does that mean? Well, for me, we strive for the rational design strategies because it seeks to use science and engineering to discover what works, why it works, as well as just importantly, why it didn't work. And these learnings enable quicker product design, quicker product development timeline, and thus can really accelerate scalability, path to market, and business growth. So for me, that's the sort of key of sort of working in an academic environment and sort of delivering outcomes that are going to benefit industry. And I think that is the last slide. So thank you very much. And I'm going to hand you on to Nidhi, who's been powering our slides today. And she's going to talk a lot about the training centre, who we're going to, certainly my program is going to interact a lot with.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks a lot. Good morning, everyone. So it's my privilege to be leading the FaBA Training Centre, and today I'll talk a little bit about the training centre and the components of the training centre to you. So Training Centre is one of the two enabling programs within FaBA. So FaBA Training Centre focuses on training and development of all the people that make up FaBA. And it is designed to benefit all partners, whether it's our industry partners or the university partners. So the Training Centre serves all the components of FaBA. The FaBA Training Centre is made up of 4 key components, which is to provide opportunities to students to develop job-ready graduate attributes, to prepare them for the workforce, provide targeted training opportunities for our industry partners, develop a framework to train our researchers in industry engagement and impact-focused research, as well as then enhance our existing lab scale food processing and testing facilities to train our students as well as to support the industry. So these are the 4 components. And now I'll give you some details about each component. So first, talking about the student training. To support and train our students, FaBA is investing in at least 10 PhD and 4 MPhil scholarships along with the top-ups to begin with. And many more of such opportunities will arise in the future as we have our more and more industry partners join us. Similarly, FaBA Training Center will offer our undergraduate, postgraduate students and researchers. So basically, students at all stages of their career, the chance to learn with the businesses by offering work-integrated learning opportunities. These will include funded industry placements for HDR and non-HDR students, UniQuest commercialization internships, as well as opportunities for undergraduate students to enroll in Honors with Industry program. So Honors with Industry program is unlike the traditional honors year. Here we offer you a chance to conduct 1 semester of research on an industry problem and do a semester of internship with the industry partner. Also, through the Makerspace projects, students will have an opportunity to be engaged in industry-led research and conduct projects at lab scale in collaboration with the industry partners. Additional engagement with industry will be provided through industry mentors, guest lectures, industry workshops, and other events, as well as FaBA annual networking conference. So moving on to the second element of the training center, which is centered around our industry partners. The training center will provide targeted training and to upskill the current workforce of our industry partners. So by offering secondments to industry partners, our partners would be able to work within the universities, working with the multidisciplinary research and academic teams, just what Jason and Esteban explained, to co-create solutions of their most pressing business challenges. We hope to be able to leverage on the National Industry PhD program, where possibly some of the industry partners and their employees would like to continue their journey with us and perhaps enroll in a PhD program with us. FaBA will also work with UQ Skills. We will work with our diverse partners to identify and develop the most effective training programs and short courses that address the specific needs of the businesses in the food and beverage sector. So perhaps we might identify and develop a short course on food safety or on marketing, etc. So, and these would be offered through UQ Skills. The third element of the FaBA Training Center focuses on our early to mid-career researchers. So we will develop a training framework to train our researchers in industry engagement and impact-focused research. This builds on the existing work that has been happening at universities to update the performance development policies. So they place now greater emphasis on engagement with external partners and the generation of impact from research, rather than just the traditional metrics. So FaBA would fully engage with those new metrics, and we would, to prepare our researchers for that, we will plan or we will design a training framework. A few examples of the elements of this framework include impact planning workshop, commercialization workshop, industry mentoring network in STEM program, research and development training workshops, career planning workshops, encouraging our researchers to participate in CSIRO on-prime program, as well as encouraging our researchers to consider industry secondments. So a lot of industry learning opportunities will be provided to the researchers. And the final piece of the training center is the Makerspace, which is centered around upskilling or developing our lab scale capability. So across UQ and across our other industry partners, we already have existing lab scale food manufacturing and food testing facilities. So FaBA would further support in developing further lab scale facilities. This is to underpin the training of the students and to support the industry. Which would be the FaBA Makerspace would be accessible to all FaBA students, staff, technology fellows, and industry partners. And FaBA Makerspace will support industry to test formulations and reformulations at lab scale, enabling their technology readiness towards translating to other FaBA programs, such as the innovation pathways and towards commercial outcomes as well. So thank you. And now I would pass on to Lloyd.
Hi, I'm Lloyd Thompson. I'm the Commercialisation and Business Development Manager for FaBA. And I was just going to try and explain a little bit about how you can work with FaBA. So for all of you listening, the best way through, if you've got, ideas and connections existing with food and beverage businesses, is to talk to the program leads to begin with and their deputies. And essentially where we're at with FaBA is the Commonwealth grant set out that the companies and the RDCs and that list of organisations who would join in FaBA initially, and most of those are now signed up or in the process of signing up. And we're discussing with some others who are interested. And essentially what we're going to do is have a second round of investment. We're still working out exactly what the details are of that, but probably around August, September. And the aim is that we'll be looking at probably around $7.5 million of the Trailblazer funding, which will sort of round it up to maybe roughly 16 million in total for the whole round. And then therefore what we'll be doing is opening our door to other Australian companies in the food and beverage industry who will have an interest in joining FaBA. And we'll probably do that by way of an expression of interest, but we're still, as I say, bedding down the details. And then for those companies who are accepted and want to join, they'll be signing a Participants Alliance Agreement, which is kind of a document which creates kind of a club of FaBA, and all of our existing participants have already signed that up. And then we'll be preparing an investment case. So FaBA is not a granting body as such. We co-invest with our participants in order that when we actually do spend the Commonwealth funding, there will be an ROI built into what the investment will be, so that there's not just a research project process without an outcome for the company involved. And therefore, logically, we have the situation where FaBA is non-diluting, so we don't take our stake in the equity of the companies who are participants. And in most of our projects, they'll be owning the IP. So once they've put together an investment case for us, then we'll have them sign up a project agreement, which will commit them to the co-investment with the Trailblazer money, and project will commence. And I think that's pretty much all I had to say. So we might just flick over to Q&A, I guess. And thanks very much for your attendance.
I might just let Chris do the thank you initially, and then we can jump into the Q&A.
Absolutely, Damien. Look, thank you to all of the team, the program leaders, Lloyd, that have presented here. Can I say that each of the programs is very ably supported by a leadership team, including a number of associate program leaders as well. And we're looking to build those teams across universities as we go forward as well. So, Damien, do you want to go through in terms of curating the questions that have come in so far?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And we have a number of that have come in already, which are some really nice, interesting ones. They've come in kind of as people have been presenting, so we'll cover a bit of ground. For our presenters, I'll try to kind of, direct them to individuals and try to be fairly concise in your response, because we don't have a long time. Okay, so I might just jump to the first one, which is to innovative ingredients. So to Esteban, do you help startups navigate the regulatory environment that they'll need to operate within? So it's a challenging area, as industry are usually a few steps ahead of regulators, so they're breaking new ground.
And it might be that I jump in on Esteban's behalf. We've been chatting in the background. So yeah, certainly. Look, great question. We do acknowledge the challenge of the regulatory space in the food industry. And we do encourage people to talk to the regulator context. We can certainly facilitate that. But can I say there are also a number of opportunities that we may have where we could bring people together with a common set of questions around regulations, and we can run workshops either ourselves, or we can connect in with other agencies that regularly do run workshops on the food regulations. And an example of that is AIFST, the Australian Institute of Food Science and Technology, do run regular workshops in this space. I guess if the question was relating specifically to startups in the precision fermentation area, there are some added layers of regulation that needs to be considered and is still under development. You know, for example, in the Office of the Gene Technology Regulator, from a gene manipulation perspective, and having appropriate facilities that are at PC2 level need to be in place there. And then from that, in addition to that, there's the food regs around FSANs and having the right HACCP regs in place in terms of production facilities as well. Now, that's something that we are also getting our head around, and I know our colleagues, participants in QUT, are certainly thinking that through and are bringing on skills in the area associated with the Mackay pilot plant scale-up facility that's there. And then also some working groups across QUT, UQ, CSIRO, and state government agencies that are looking at this space as well. So can I just suggest that your question's a good one, watch this space. It's important as we accelerate the food and beverage sector, particularly in innovative ingredients using precision fermentation, that we are there working with and helping small companies, new companies, navigate this space. Okay, hopefully that's enough, Damien. I'll stop there.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. That's good.
Yeah.
I'll go to another question now, and I'll pass to Lloyd for this. And Lloyd, I think you covered some of this ground, but I'll just throw the question to you anyway. How will IP be managed with companies pursuing interest in working with FaBA?
Oh, okay. So the idea is that for most of our projects, if we have a project where a particular company wants some research done, then that company will be the project IP owner. And the idea behind that is that we want to get the results into, application as soon as possible. So rather than building some kind of a arcane arrangement where we've got to go out and around and license back to people who've done the work, we'll essentially allow them to go forward and make direct use of it in their business as soon as possible. So that's why quite a few of these projects will be short-term, sharp, focused projects to solve a particular problem at a particular time. Now, there will be other projects where we have a consortium approach, where we have a group of companies who are involved, or it might be a group of companies and maybe an RDC, who'll be involved in doing a project. And for those ones, then that group will be owning the IP and using it. And then we'll have yet more where essentially the IP will be released in the sort of the more traditional way to benefit the broader food and beverage industry. But essentially, as I say, the key element here is that we want to prevent companies from feeling that they're not getting the benefit of the investment they put in, because it is literally their money they're putting up to make this work.
Thanks, Lloyd. That's great coverage. I might go to a quick question here, and I'll throw to Chris for this one. What is the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries role in FaBA currently and in future potential?
Yeah, thank you. I know DAF well, having come from there recently. Look, DAF has a key role to play in the Queensland food and beverage sector, right across the agri-food sector, certainly. We have been working with DAF across QUT, UniSQ, and UQ in particular to identify the capabilities that we all have and to offer the food and beverage sector. One of the things that we are planning to do is to try and put some sort of capability map together so that, often it's very hard for companies to navigate. Who do I go to? So the idea will be that they can come to any one of us, and there will be cross-referral opportunities depending on the skills, the experience, and the capabilities that we've got. I should note that FaBA's, while we're hosted in Queensland, and we certainly have a focus and providing important benefits to Queensland, our role is slightly broader than that, in that our focus is Australia-wide, and indeed some of our participating companies are from other states in Australia as well. So keen to coordinate, keen to communicate, and keen to represent each other's capabilities is the answer. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chris. I'll go to another one now, and I'll throw to Janet, which was a question about the insights engine. How do you define and or measure sustainable in terms of food?
Yeah, thanks very much, Damien. We're taking a very broad view of what is sustainable. we're looking at the trends which we are seeing evidence of across, not just in Australia, but overseas as well, and looking at international markets. So the focus there would be looking at the sustainability of that product, given the interest in more healthy foods, alternative proteins. Where is this traceability of the food and so on? So, and we can go further than that. We can look at sustainable packaging. That is packaging that is good for the planet. So it's really can be quite broad in terms of what's good for people, what's good for the planet, and what's good for business.
I'll just throw in a little bit there. And in terms of the insights engine, you know, the analytics have a strong market and consumer focus, but it's kind of we're very cognizant. When I say we, I'm involved with Janet in the innovation pathways around undertaking appropriate measurement and including life cycle analysis in there. So I think that's a very important aspect of anything that we're looking at here across FaBA. And the sustainable, as Janet said, can be viewed in very different ways, but one way in terms of measuring is to take a life cycle approach to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks
Sorry,
for jumping in, Damien. Appreciate that.
Okay. Here's an interesting question. Not quite sure who wants to go for this one. Are you considering the Nagoya Protocol and the use of First Nations knowledge in development of Australian foods?
So I can answer that one. So, so if we're dealing with native foods, yeah, absolutely, we'd use the Nagoya Protocol. So we're just completing currently a ARC ITTC in uniquely Australian foods, where that's been actually quite pivotal, and we have quite good protocols for managing that. So that'll be utilised.
And if I can just build on Jason's comments there, our colleagues and part of our management team is Yasmina Sultanbawa leading the area of work that Jason referred to, and we have got a strategic priority to engage deeply, respectfully, and well with Indigenous peoples, and to learn from and understand and assist in the development of the Indigenous food and beverage industry. So that would be fundamental to our approach. So thank you, Jason.
Almost out of time, so we might just take some of those questions on notice and try to cover them, you know, beyond the scope and time of this seminar. But there's been really some very good questions and a number more that we just didn't get time to cover. So we'll make sure we get that correspondence happening there. And very much like to thank Chris and the team in terms of their presentation and the depth that they covered to give people a good idea, and strongly encourage everyone to actually make contact across FaBA, particularly through the FaBA Directorate. And, you know, I think you'll get some great correspondence happening, and they're very open to not just discussion, but encouraging a lot more involvement, not just across the universities, but with industry partners and government as well. So plenty of opportunities there. I will just kind of say we cover each week the science seminars for coffee, and Craig Hardner is the typical coordinator of those. So Craig will, I'm sure, be back next week. You can actually access the presentations as well following, so you can see that link to the webpage there for the science seminar series. And I'm not sure what next week's is about, so we'll just kind of leave you in suspense. And we might close it off just now. And thank you for your time. A good turn up. So it's good to see a lot of people inside and outside of coffee being involved. So thank you very much. And I'm sure we'll see quite a few people next week.